Yes. Now see, what is the etiology of acute kidney injury? The first reason is known as pre-renal AKI. So what is that pre-renal AKI? As the name suggests that there is a condition which is not directly associated with the kidney. The renal function, the renal system, that is in place. But the problem is there is decreased blood supply to the kidney. When there is decreased blood supply to the kidney, there will be high blood urea nitrogen and creatinine level, and dehydration will occur because less amount of blood is entering the kidney, and naturally the kidney, they will not be able to filter out the toxins, they will not be able to flush out the extra fluids, and then vomiting, loose motion, blood loss, heart attack, allergy, they are all the reasons which could be considered as factors causing pre-renal AKI. Second type of reasons could be something related to the structural injury. Some part of the kidney is damaged. So that is known as renal or intrinsic AKI. So what is a structural injury? It could be structural injury to the vessels which are there inside the glomerulocapsule, and glomeruli itself, it could be affected. Then tubules could be affected. Then interstitium ischemia could occur. There could be some blockage in the interstitium. There could be some toxins, allergy, antibiotics, which could damage renal function because of it has some structural injury because of all these listed reasons. And then comes post-renal AKI. So what is post-renal AKI? Where the mechanical obstruction of urinary system occurs. The problem is there, the kidneys are not able to perform their functions because of some mechanical problem. Now the mechanical problem, it could be some urinary system after the urine production has occurred. Now there is some problem with the urinary pelvis or some ureter or bladder or urethra because of some stones or tumors, which will hamper again the activity of the kidneys, and that will cause high blood urea nitrogen and creatinine level. So this is the etiology. And now, what are the general phases of acute renal failure or AKI? What we see, the first phase which we will see, that will be the anuric phase, where we will have around 14 days where there will be extremely less amount of or nearly absence of urine, followed by oliguric phase, which will last for 8 to 14 days, and followed by diuretic phase where there will be excessive urination, that will last for around 10 days, and then a recovery which will take around 10 days to 3 months or up to 1 year. So this is the characteristic feature of acute renal failure or acute kidney injury. Now, what are the symptoms? We have already seen there will be low urine output. We'll call it anuria or oliguria. Anuria is complete absence of urine, and oliguria is very less secretion of excretion of urine. That will be a range of 20 to 200 ml per day. The patient will feel lethargic, anorexic, nausea and vomiting might be experienced. So he'll be feeling very weak. He will not be having any urge. He will not feel like eating anything. Yeah, he will be having high blood pressure or some signals of uremia. That means more urea in the blood would be seen. So in extreme cases, death will occur due to potassium intoxication or water intoxication, because if it is not handled nicely, what will happen? There will be imbalance of potassium and water inside our body, because if it is not going out of the body, it is going to stay in the blood. So that will cause intoxication. And then if we are over treating to flush out the fluids, what will happen? There will be potassium intoxication. The potassium will stay inside the blood, and that level will cause death. Now, how do we manage AKI? The objectives of management of AKI will include, the first objective is to improve the renal functioning. We would like to see what is the reason and how we can improve the functioning of the kidney. And then second objective will be to monitor abnormal blood protein status. So blood protein status, that will be, if we are monitoring it, then we'll be able to stop the progression of catabolism of protein, because these patients, they will go into catabolic phase where the protein will be broken down, because the kidneys are not handling the protein nicely. And then we need to spare protein for the tissue repair, because catabolism has occurred. So we have to preserve the existing proteins, and we have to spare the protein for tissue repair by giving the other forms of energy through different nutrients, that will be carbohydrates and fats. And then we have to control hyperglycemia if the person is diabetic, hypertension if the person is hypertensive, and dyslipidemia if the patient is having some cardiovascular issues. And then we have to improve the nutritional status and the appetite of that person through the persuasive counseling. And in oliguria, when there is less urine formation, we have to restrict the fluid intake. It has to be managed between 500 to 700 milliliter per day, and with the protein of 0.6 to 0.8 gram per kg per day, and 50% of the protein that should be of high biological value. So here I have summarized the nutritional management that we see. If the patient is not on dialysis, then it has to be 0.6 gram per kg per day. If the person is on dialysis, naturally there will be more losses in the dialysis. So the needs will be 1 to 1.2 gram per kg per day from dietary or then other sources, parenteral sources, if the patient is not able to take the things orally or through some enteral feed. Then energy, 25 to 30 non-protein kilocalorie per kg per day. So what do we, why are we saying 25 to 30 non-protein calorie? Because here we are providing these calories, these many calories from fats and carbohydrates. And we wish to spare the proteins for maintenance of its the protein's functions. And carbohydrate minimum 100 gram per day, and we would like to give a simple glucose kind of things. Then sodium, when there is less urine, then naturally we have to restrict the sodium, because it will cause further water retention and edema will occur. So we have to restrict it to 500 to 1000 milligram. That is a strict sodium restriction. And on when the person is on diuretics, that amount has to be increased. It will be based on the urine losses. Whatever is the losses in the urine, we have to see, we have to monitor, and then we can increase or decrease the value or the intake of the sodium accordingly. That can be planned. Then potassium, if the hyperkalemia means more potassium inside the blood, if it is present, then we have to restrict it to 1000 to 200 milligrams. And on improvement, it can be increased to 600 to 700 milliequivalent, because 1000 to 2000 milligram is equivalent to 25 to 50 milliequivalent. So that can be doubled. Then fluids, we have to see how much are there losses in the urine, what is the urine output, and then plus 500 ml, that is the additional dosage which we give for the fluids. Now we come to the second type of kidney disease, which is again, we can say it is a progression of AKI to the chronic side. AKI, they have different reasons, but why chronic kidney disease is a more serious kind of problem? Because we have seen it usually occurs after the kidney function deteriorates to a level where there is a point of no return. What we can do, we can only act on it to see if we can slow down the progression, if we can maintain the nutritional status of a person, if we can delay or prevent dialysis, and if we can maintain the good quality of life. So it is a serious kind of problem, which is known as chronic kidney disease. Now, how do we define a chronic kidney disease? When do we say, okay, the person is having this CKD problem? So that when we see the kidney damage is more than 3 months old and is defined by how the kidney damage is, how is that damage defined? By either structural or functional abnormalities. We have seen there could be some problem with the structure of nephron, or some tubules, or some kind of issue with the structure, or some function because of some tumor, or because of some stones. There are abnormalities in the kidney with or without a decreased glomerular filtration rate, so GFR, that will be manifested by some pathological abnormalities or markers of kidney damage, including abnormality in the composition of blood or urine, or abnormality in imaging tests. So when we see these problems, we will see, along with some kidney damage, we have some indicators to see what are the parameter. For example, we will see what is the glomerular filtration rate, what is the creatinine level, and what is the alkaline phosphatase level, what are the other parameters. There are many parameters which are associated with the blood and with the urine. And then we have some imaging tests. We take some imaging tests and we see whether there is some structural change in the size or weight, or something related to the looks of that anatomy of the kidneys. And then glomerular filtration rate, if it is less than 60 ml per minute per meter square for more than 3 months, with or without kidney damage, again we are going to call this person having CKD. And then what are the classic symptoms? There will be dehydration or water intoxication, or there will be sodium depletion, high serum potassium level, acidosis, and then susceptibility to infection, same as what we saw in AKI, but that will be here. The things will be in higher magnitude, and the thing will be of serious nature. Now, etiology, as we have seen, just like AKI, the people, because we have number of aging population which is increasing, and they are comorbid conditions. For example, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and then people who are having acute glomerulonephritis, eventually they can develop some CKD problem, and then kidney stones, they are another positive factor. Then CKD is leading cause of hypertension. Prevalence of hypertension in Indian urban population is approximately 20 to 40%. Whereas if we see in CKD, its prevalence is much higher, depending upon the stage of CKD, reaching about 90% in end stage renal disease. If we see the final stages patients, then they have 90% of them, they have hypertension. And other causes of CKD are autoimmune diseases such as lupus, IgA nephropathy. They are allergic conditions where their own body becomes your own enemy. And then we have some genetic diseases. These are the diseases which we are born with, such as polycystic kidney disease. And then some urinary tract problems, they can cause CKD. So how do we see GFR or creatinine clearance? We have two formulas. The first is equation for the modification of diet in renal disease study, MDRD. But in Indian setting, we use the second one. So this is the second one is here, as we can see this one. I would like to see. This is the formula which we are going to use. That is 140 minus age in years into body weight per kg divided by 72 into serum creatinine level. And for females, we use 0.5 into male value. This is the Cockcroft-Gault equation. And now, what are the symptoms of chronic kidney disease? The early symptom will be frothy urine. So what is a frothy urine? That is the increased, that is an indication of protein inside the urine. And it could be, in addition to that, increased urine volume and frequency that can be felt. Then edema of feet and puffiness of face can be seen. That is again water retention on the extremities. And then hypertension is another we have already discussed. And then in advanced cases, the GFR falls below 500 ml per minute. And then that will lead to edema, hypertension, irregular heartbeats, and then pericarditis. That is, pericardium is a layer of your heart, and there will be abnormality in that, that will be swollen. And then there will be loss of appetite, vomiting, and hiccups, they would occur. These are followed by neurological symptoms. So what is those neurological symptoms? There will be neuropathy, the sensation will be affected. There will be twitching, they will be feeling some sensation, convulsions they will be having, and then coma can also occur. So these are the neurological symptoms. Depending upon the severity of the CKD, the patient will experience these symptoms. And then the hemopathic system that is affected. We have already discussed the kidneys, they are associated with the formation of RBCs. And when that system is affected, that will lead to anemia, tiredness, breathlessness, and tendency to bleed will occur. Because there is abnormal platelet function, the kidneys are not working nicely. And then there will be skin changes, which will cause pigmentation, itching, and purpura. There will be spots, purple kind of spots, that is known as purpura. And then renal osteodystrophy. So what is that renal osteodystrophy? Because calcium, vitamin D level is not produced. So once vitamin D3, active vitamin D3 is not there, there will be nobody to handle the calcium level inside the blood. That will cause leaching of your calcium from the bones, and there will be imbalance between the calcium and phosphorus level. And the leached out calcium, that will be deposited on the soft organs, that is known as metastatic calcification. And then rickets and growth failure that can occur in some young aged patients. Now, how do we handle such patients? So the objective of treatment will include to treat underlying cause. If the patient is having hypertension, we have to control hypertension. If the person is have dyslipidemia, hyperlipidemia, then we have to control that. And we have to prevent protein catabolism in all manners, and we have to minimize the uremic toxicity. That means urea level in the blood has to be managed and it has to be minimized. And to avoid dehydration or overhydration, again there will be imbalance of the fluid level inside the blood and outside the blood. Then correct the acidosis, because the patient will not be able to maintain the normal pH of the urine. Naturally, it will affect the blood pH also. Then there will be electrolyte depletion, and then we have to control fluid and electrolytic losses. And then we have to maintain nutritional status, appetite, sense of well-being, because at this juncture, the person will not feel like eating. Because of n number of reasons. And we have to control the complications, for example, bone pains, then central nervous system abnormalities we just discussed, and then we have to retard the progression of renal failure. So that is one very important objective. So how do we manage? In the mild cases, we control hypertension, salt and water balance. Oral and intravenous things, they can be given. So the main mild cases, we have to give more focus to the hypertension level, and then salt and water balance. And to minimize the azotemia, acidosis, hyperkalemia, hyperphosphatemia, and hypocalcemia, we have to manage these things. What is azotemia? Azotemia is higher level of blood urea nitrogen and creatinine. Acidosis is more acidic level in the blood. Then hyperkalemia is more potassium inside the blood. Hyperphosphatemia, more phosphate in the blood. And hypocalcemia, less calcium inside the blood. So we have to correct these abnormalities. We have to maintain the balance inside the body. So here, how do we go about it? We have to restrict the protein below 0.6 gram per kg per day. And the doctors these days are trying with the very low protein diets, where 0.3 gram per kg per day is supplemented with some essential amino acid and some keto acid amino acids. So these are the keto acid amino acid. What are these amino acids? They are the amino acids which do not increase the nitrogen burden inside the blood. So in a way, they are considered beneficial to be supplemented with very low protein diets. And then if the potassium level is more than 5 milliequivalent per liter, then we have to give them phosphate binders. They are the medicines which will be taken so that the phosphate present in the food that gets bound and that is excreted without entering our body. And then hypocalcemia, we have to give supplements for that. And to prevent malnutrition, it is advisable to give 30 to 35 kilocalorie per kg per day ideal body weight. That will be the based on the ideal body weight, not on the basis of actual body weight, because many a time these patients might be malnourished. So if there is hypertension and volume overload, if we have the person is having edema, the person is having hypertension, so we have to restrict salt to 4 grams per day, and then of course we have to correct the volume overload through fluid restriction, and we have already discussed that. Then if the person is having a complication of hyperlipidemia, so if we see the stages of CKD, we can divide them into 5 categories according to the severity of the problem. For stage 1 to 3, we will give a diet same as normal hyperlipidemia. We have to take care of the kind of fats which we are giving. And in the stage 4 and 5, when the patient is having n number of problems and when the progression is very fast, then we have to be little strict with that. And then medicines as they are to be given to correct the hyperlipidemia, because we'll be having so many restrictions in the diet of the patient. So the dietary management, we have some expert groups. They have established nutrition recommendations. So here I would like to tell you what are these, you must know what are these groups. First is National Kidney Foundation, Kidney Disease Outcome Quality Initiative, NKFK DOKI guidelines. We call them KDOKI guidelines. And then is European Society of Clinical Nutrition and Metabolism. We call it ESPEN guidelines. And then European Best Practice Group, we call it EBPG. And now let us see how these different bodies, how these different organizations, they recommend the different nutrients. So for energy, high energy needs are there to avoid protein catabolism, because the body has started breaking down the protein. And so we need to give energy from sources where the body can spare the protein for its main function. So muscle wasting has to be avoided, and how we can avoid? Through high energy. So as I told you, there are different stages. For stage 1 to 4, we will see the KDOKI or ESPEN guidelines. They are in the range of approximately 35 kilocalorie per kg per day. And then for the stage 5, here in the stage 5, how the patient is handled, usually that is for sure that patient will be handled through the dialysis. So here what will happen, we have to again the energy requirement will be 30 to 35 kilocalorie per kg per day, and so more or less everyone agrees on that level. And when you see protein level for stage 1 to 4 of CKD, KDOKI says 0.6 to 0.75, and then ESPEN has seen if the GFR is more than 70, if it is less than 70, so how to give. If it is more than 70, if they are more liberal, they say you can give 0.8 to 1 gram per kg per day, and if it is less than 70, we can give from anywhere between 0.55 to 0.6 gram. And then for stage 5, because the protein will be lost in the dialysis process, so here we will be increasing the protein to 1.2 gram per kg per day, and 50% that should come from high biological value protein. And now this is our standard CKD diet prescription. So here we have calories 30 to 35 kilocalorie per day. As we have seen, protein is in the range of 6.6 to 0.8 gram per kg per day. And sodium, that is based on the blood pressure and edema status. And the potassium, again, water level will be deciding factor. Phosphorus is in the range of 800 to 1000 milligram per day, and fluid again according to the edema, BP, and sodium.